like work.
So, flicking. Hello, my name's Joseph Wachowski. I play for the Overwatch team. I mostly play main tank, but in ranked and other things, I generally flex around a ton to play basically whatever, so I can play both support, tank, and DPS at about a master's level.
My name is Sushil, and I'm from the media team. I play usually DPS around like a silver level, some very rarely bronze, but I try to keep it a good solid silver.
Nice.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be going through all the different characters and how, or not all the different characters, but we're going to be going through basically how mouse movement is different for each of the different roles, kind of learning a little bit about them, and then we're going to get him in here and he's going to try some too. Cue up.
All right, let's go.
So I guess if you want, we can try to start with like a hit scan DPS of some sort.
Sure. Yeah,
right.
That's good.
Definitely not my best one, but I can do it.
Yeah.
So that's something. All right.
So if I'm gonna go in a quick play on your account, am I playing against Grandmaster level on average?
No. Although it might be around lower master, so if you wanted, we could switch accounts too, and that could probably be a little bit better.
I'll give it a shot and
You
see
could
how I do
you
it.
could go through the trial by fire if you want.
Yeah.
So, what do you think hit scan I should do, wise? What do you like to play? Widow, McCree, Soldier, Ashe?
I usually play Ashe.
All right, let's do Ashe.
I feel like Widow, I'm not as good as landing the shots, so.
I actually have like a Smurf where I just play a ton of Widow just because
Widow.
it's fun. And also, wait, we can actually take a look at my hours here. I used to play a lot of Lucio, but I still have 57 hours on Widow, so that's something definitely. And that's where most of my skills for this character come from.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I
haven't got a ton of individual practice on her, honestly.
Does changing the types of crosshairs affect your gameplay?
Somewhat. There are some that are just like egregiously annoying, but basically just something that's comfortable for you. I go with green because I find that there isn't too much stuff on my screen that is usually green.
Mm-hmm.
So this is usually fine, like wherever I'm looking and I'm going to see it clearly. And usually I go for a dot. I think sometimes it defaults to this little circle around the dot depending on the character. But, you know, that's fine with me, honestly. I also don't like, there's a thing in this game called Bloom, and I find that kind of distracting because it like, as you keep shooting, it'll show like the recoil kind of going out.
Right.
I find that really annoying because I want to be able to focus on where towards the center is.
Mm-hmm.
So basically with this kind of a character, I'm going to be going for flicking on whoever I can here and hopefully not dying.
Nice.
So how does flicking like work?
So flicking is generally whenever you have to get sort of a muscle memory for it, and it's not too hard to get it for it at first, but you basically try to have muscle memory of your setup pretty well. Like, let's say I want to hit this thing right here, so I'm going to, like, I remember about how much my mouse movement is for everything. If I'm going to do a quick, like, small movement, I'll use just my wrist. If I'm going to do a big one, I'll use my arm. Usually doing just your wrist is going to be more accurate, which is why I do that, but basically I'm trying to, like, muscle memory so I can flick really quickly to it because it's a little bit more consistent than
Is there a reason you flick rather than like tracking the target with your crosshair?
It kind of depends on the character, which is what's kind of interesting about Overwatch is that it has so many different ways of doing it. So I do like tracking quite a bit. See, I can try to track a little bit there,
Right.
but the thing is that whenever you're playing a character where only where the crosshair is at the last second matters, it's better to get that muscle memory and get used to it if you can.
Mm-hmm.
One of our players, Deadly, he plays a lot of Widowmaker and a few other things similar with like hit scan.
Right.
A lot of Tracer. Tracer you're going to be tracking most of the time though, because she has the consistent 40 shots going out really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But with like Widowmaker, he goes to like, it's a mode called a Widow Headshot only, so basically it's just a bunch of Widowmakers fighting each other in a team deathmatch, or not team, but normal deathmatch mode, and kind of just trying to get headshots over and over. It's just good for aim practice, so he's like doing flicks in there basically for hours. It's kind of ridiculous. Also, I cannot even
Just
hit
sit
that.
back and wait to clock out.
What kind of sensitivity do you usually use?
So as of right now, usually what they do is they multiply the DPI by the sensitivity you would use in this game to get a sort of idea of where you're at.
Right.
So I use about a 5.4 sensitivity multiplied by my DPI of about 600.
Other than like flicking, what other kind of techniques? Like apart from Ash for other characters.
I used to play a bunch of Zarya, so my tracking actually got really good off of that. And like for example so I used to also play a bunch of Ana, so some of these hit scan aren't too bad for me to get used to, but Ana's a little bit more forgiving because you have to hit your team a lot more often, and I think that the hitbox for your team is slightly larger for Ana,
Right.
which is interesting. Not quite sure why they did that, but it's cool.
Is there any sort of specific way you use your movement controls?
Oh, so like, for example, you saw me like poking this corner real quick here.
Right.
Like, you
Take 'em out with the,
But DPS, a lot of it can be about just using your angles properly. So spamming on a corner, like the AD spam I was doing around the corner, just so I can give you like a quick.
somebody's up
I find that's really helpful to like pretty safe way to get across some damage. But the other problem with that is that if you do that too much, then like you saw the Widow was like spamming and it was going right by
Right.
my head on where I was. So there's actually, if you talk to a CS:GO person, there's no way they wouldn't know about this.
I think the other
Do you say that your like the mouse movements you use for DPS are very different compared to tank or healer?
Oh yeah, very. I was actually thinking we could maybe go through that if you wanted. But yeah, I think it varies hugely, which is one of the interesting things I think would make it kind of
So
cool
would
to
it be
do
even
Overwatch with this kind of video.
like between characters such as like Soldier and Orisa, where they're both still firing sort of, I'd say
I would say they would be pretty similar, except that Orisa is very much a projectile character, so that you would have to like lead your shots a little bit.
okay. And how do you say what is leading your shots?
Oh yeah, leading your shots, it's going to be like aiming where you expect them to be in maybe about half a second or a second. Probably not a whole second, but depending on how far away they are. And we can get out of this and move on to the next one if you want.
do they both have ops?
So how much space do you usually give yourself? Is that vary
I think
for
they
a
both have
player?
ops.
Like how much you need to move your wrist?
Oh yeah, it does. But it also kind of depends on the mount sensitivity you're going to use. So I'm kind of like gotten to a point with all the characters where I can feel somewhat comfortable in that if I need to do any big movements like you will more often be doing on tank and support, I can do that. But if I need to do any more accurate movements, which you're going to more often be doing on support or DPS, then I have my wrist as well.
So what would you do if you had to like
Oh, nice,
turn,
dude.
say 180 real quick, as like a Ryan with the shield? So,
No,
Yeah.
so just the one motion
Yeah.
turns them all the way around. So
Yeah.
would you say you have to like adjust your sensitivity so that one
Yeah,
sweep
yeah.
would
I think
flip you
if
around?
you're at a point where you can't do a 180 and almost a 360 at least, then you probably should change it a little bit. Speaking of which, I may need to move that over so I have a little more space. So I could do
You're over
Sigma
in that
maybe,
store.
because he has the projectiles that are going on.
Right.
Also, he has some
Or
weird
the back,
bouncing
back,
stuff.
back.
So we could show a little bit about how leading. Another thing that's interesting with this character is that his projectile explodes after about 20 meters, or it only explodes if you hit someone. So if somebody gets close to you, then it suddenly becomes you have to be really accurate with your shots. Or if somebody is far away from you, it's somewhat similar to a Pharah. But either way, you still have to be leading your shots a little bit and kind of figuring out where you think they're about to be. Another nice thing is bouncing off the floor to kind of like hit them right in the toes.
Sort of like straightforward target, just aim down.
Yeah. That's a thing that you do a lot with characters that have explosive shots at all, like Pharah. So this Pharah would hopefully be aiming at the feet of some of her enemies to make the shots a little bit easier on her, since there's going to be an explosion damage anyway.
Do you use the buttons on the side, or do you prefer to use like the key?
I prefer using the buttons for a few things. So, for example, this is my push to talk button, and if
Right.
I had a mic right now, I'd be able to say stuff in here.
Do you ever use it for like abilities? Say like, would you use
Yeah,
it for like
my
the shield?
E is actually on this right here.
Oh, okay.
I should have just
Do you find that works easier than you having it on your keyboard?
Oh yeah. Well, it kind of depends, person to person.
Uh-huh.
This is going to be awkward. But yeah, it definitely depends person to person. Very much a preference thing. I have a lot of friends who, like, I have one friend that has a similar mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And he likes to have one of his buttons on melee.
Right. Do you think the material of your mouse pad differs? Because I've noticed that they have like the harder RGB ones.
I think the material itself isn't the thing that you have to be most specific about. A lot of it is whether it is like a hard or a soft mouse pad and like how much. So the material does matter, but it's like
It's more for like comfort.
partially comfort, but like also like the difference between a hard mouse pad and a. Oh, dang it! I booped my guy away. The difference between a hard mouse pad and a soft mouse pad are going to be your big things, and also like how much friction is on your mouse pad. This is going to be awkward. So, like, mine has these little sort of plasticky things on the bottom that add a little bit of friction on my mouse, and that will kind of go in along with how, what kind of material you have for your mouse pad. So this one, there's not too much friction unless you press down at all.
Right.
So,
And
I don't know, it's pretty comfortable for me.
Do some players prefer like a greater amount of friction on their mouse pads?
It's not going to be too high ever, I don't think. But I've seen there's some interesting things. Like there was a pretty high-level Overwatch player that used a hard, small mouse pad with an insanely high sensitivity. Instead of making any like large movements like I do, he like makes really small movements with a really high sensitivity, so that these small, so you can do like really quickly, but with just like slightly moving it at all.
And it should like have like, so just moving a little would move like the cursor like all the way,
Yeah.
or would it would be just a greater range of motion basically. That's a good one.
That felt good. Thing. I guess we're probably about to end this map, so I can finish on. Let's
Yeah.
do ball. Ball's a fun one. Ball, I think, is a really interesting one because he goes between having to do these large movements to, like, say, grab up there real quick,
Right.
and then let's say I need to hit that bell specifically because that's an enemy, then you're like suddenly swapping to very specific tracking. Another cool thing that a lot of people don't know is you can reload while you're in this little ball form, so that while you're rolling around, you can reload and then come back with a full ammo.
Would
That's
that
really nice. Or you can start reloading before and then go into it, I think.
does that like cancel the animation? Because you're not technically playing the
Yeah,
reload
so
anyway.
see, like, if we reload here and then go into ball form, there it is.
Oh.
So then my ammo comes back up. So, like, here, swapped quickly between needing to aim up to get up there, and he's getting healed a ton now, so that's not going to matter there. The swapping quickly between having to do these larger movements to, like, grab onto stuff. Oh my god. Oh, that's hacked. Well, I'm definitely
Is there a
good there.
specific grip you use for your mouse? Do you prefer like?
A lot of times like this, I have two fingers on one side, my thumb here to press either of the buttons, and then here, and I can swap to using this, but I don't use it for that much stuff anymore. I used to use it for Lucia, which is another fun one that I put a ton of hours into, that I have a weird control system with that I think will be fun to talk about.
For sure. Oh, so you're gonna drop off the edge there.
Yeah, I would prefer not dropping off the edge. Okay. A lot of the other supports that you would play are kind of like Brig, where there's not really aiming. Baptiste, there is a little bit of aiming, although he's kind of similar to like a projectile in which you're going to be shooting your heels at their feet.
Correct.
Ana is really similar to any other hit scan, except she swaps to a projectile if you're not aiming down sights, which is kind of fun. Mercy, there isn't really aiming. Zenyatta, there is aiming, but he's very similar to a Hanzo. So I might do like one more thing and go over like a Hanzo or a Zenyatta if you want.
Yep.
Because that was one that I'm actually good at. That would be fun to talk about. So you'll see that I move around here a lot,
Right.
and you can actually backwards wall right now, so it's not quite as important to have your screen in the right place to do the mouse movements.
Mm-hmm.
But I still need to be, so like here, I'm gonna try to quickly swap between using my mouse to help me move like this, and then using my mouse to get somewhat of a good aim on these guys so I can help finish them off.
So do you like lift the mouse to move it rather than dragging it?
Uh,
Because I
it
tend
kinda-
to, I feel like I tend to like drag it back to where it was.
It kind of depends. Yeah, I try to like reset whenever I can. So like dragging it back to the middle wherever I have it most comfortable after I do any sort of big movements like that.
Right.
So like if I'm like to jump up here, I have to move my mouse around a little bit, but once I'm up here, I kind of try to keep it towards the middle. So I'm ready for whenever I need to do something again.
Mm-hmm.
See if we can get a meme on these guys. Woo.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I didn't know you.
miss playing
I
Lucio.
would never risk going on this part of the map.
The thing that's really nice about that, just in this specific situation, is you saw how low health I was after
Right.
engaging them, and it gives them a really hard angle to even like be able to see me. Not to mention I'm still moving really quickly down there while healing myself.
Right.
Really nice. Love this character. Wish I still got to play him more. That's fine.
New meta's not really
Well,
forgiving.
I play main tanks, like you saw me
Oh.
on ball, so I'd be
Right.
playing stuff like that. I'd be playing Reinhardt. Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm down there. I was kind of being a little too repetitive with my jumping there, just jumping back and forth over and over, so it made it pretty easy to hit me.
What do you say are like common mistakes people starting out in Overwatch would make?
In general, a lot of people don't, maybe not a lot of people, there's plenty of people who don't play and learn what all the characters do, because this game kind of tends to be like MOBA, where each of the characters has different abilities, and knowing what they do and what they are can be very helpful to your success on any character.
Right.
So I think, oh, and I guess we're probably talking about mice, but I think that learning all of the characters and learning like how to aim and like do anything with all of them, because I find that I used to play like a ton of Ana for my old team, for example, and those skills translated to like everything, even though it wasn't the same movement things as them, and I had to relearn a few like
the
mouse
basic
movement things.
aiming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still need to like does aiming tracking matter because it like
Sort of.
attaches?
As you can tell here, you kind of just need to be aiming in their general direction.
All right.
I didn't have enough space there on my mouse pad. I messed up a little and kind of smacked the keyboard, if you saw there, because the thing is that you do have to aim like a tiny bit by looking in their general direction, and then you have to be ready to make these quick movements like, so let's say if there's like an Ana up there, I want to have my mouse cursor on her the whole time. And then basically the idea with Winston is that you want to put yourself into a highly survivable situation. Oh god. So that you can jump out as soon as the cooldown comes up.
All right.
So I would say, still zapping this on, a cooldown just came up. Got to get out of there. And now I'm on the other side of the map. But yeah, that's basically the idea with Winston. So his mouse movement is a lot of basic following where the enemy is, and then just quick movements to do some stuff. So like here we'll do that until the cooldown comes up. And since we're still pushing, I'll re-engage. And we're good. Oh, we're not good. All right, now we're good.
Yep.
Cool. So even though the mouse movement is still simple, I think it's just interesting that they're so different for each character.
Right. So would you like categorize the movements into like projectiles and then beam, like characters that would need tracking and then flicking, and is there any other sort of categories that people would fit under?
So do you mean categories of aiming, or just like
Yeah,
mouse movement
like-
in general in this game?
I'd say wouldn't they go hand in hand?
Sort of. Because like if I'm playing Reinhardt, I don't know how much aiming I'm really
You're
doing other
doing.
than my fire strike.
Right.
So the thing with tanks is like, another thing is that, oh, that was dumb of me. I want to be, a lot of tanks play with a lot higher sensitivity, which I don't as much because I flex so much, I think. But a lot of tanks play with higher sensitivity because you want to see as much of what's going on as possible at a time.
Right. Are there advantages to using like a lower sensitivity?
It's mostly just that it's what I'm used to.
Right.
So, and I can play it on almost any of the characters, basically. to a pretty good degree of.
Would there be
Comfortableness.
anything where like character where you would suggest like a lower sensitivity over
Hi, Bastion. Lower sensitivity over a higher one.
higher one? Like even
Uh,
if you're used to like a higher, you'd suggest a person go down on it.
The only thing that could possibly be would probably be hit scan and like, probably not like tracking style hit scan because that's all about being comfortable with who you're aiming at,
Right.
how you're aiming it. So like Zarya is another one that I used to like a lot. She's pretty interesting. Watching like, try to just basically at all times keep your mouse cursor on them. It's really nice that we got to play the game so I could talk about that. But just trying to do your best to keep your mouse cursor on them at all times. I don't know. I was kind of really into that for a while, and I think that it requires a lot of both knowledge on what they're going to do or what you think they're going to do, and also just very strict muscle control to keep it exactly on them.
I tend to cover most of the mouse with my palm.
I mean,
and
it looks
just
like
press down.
yeah, it looks like at the base though you still have like the same grip that I have.
Right.
So I think you can still also press E to use your E if you're more used to that.
Yeah,
but
I tried putting like assigning abilities to buttons, but I tend to find that in like situations where like someone like jumps me or I'm just jumpy in general, I'll like throw out that dynamite just
Oh,
by
yeah.
squeezing the mice or like
I used to have
pressing-
that problem with McCree because like my muscles were so tense
right.
whenever I was flicking or just tracking somebody that I would sometimes accidentally press that E and just use a flashbang on nothing.
That signal.
So this looks like a very awkward situation for you. They're going double barrier.
yeah.
That's going to be really annoying. Well, whatever you want to do. Honestly, this is just like to get ideas. It's not all
yeah,
about
that's
winning.
true.
Whatever you feel comfortable doing. If you
I
could like,
I didn't even look at their.
Can you hear me?
Oh my god, that saw that coming.
you're good. You're good. Nice burn, dude.
Thanks. Oh, he's low, and I have 9 HP.
I haven't played her enough yet, so I haven't gotten the
I
feeling
find
for.
that she's not like she does. She has like a little more survivability than like McCree.
Yeah, I think
But
the longer
other than
range
that, it
helps with that
yeah.
too.
2 barrier versus 3 distance DPS. Another thing would be how do you say you're moving fast or your character has a thing where the other people are moving fast. How do you like predict where they're? So if I'm like a widow and there's like a character that's like a tracer zipping around, how do you position yourself to get to the?
Ooh, yeah, that's a really tough one. That's one that's like, not, like, there's not one specific way to do it because you don't know exactly what the tracer's gonna do, but a lot of tracers sort of have like a pattern where they'll like blink after a little while, and you could like try to blink.
So
or
you
like
just
try to
sort
get
of
them
like
right after the
predict and
blink.
like snap to it.
Yeah, so it's all about like a quick snap
Rather
using your
than,
muscle
like-
memory that you're used to with your mouse to get to where you think they are or where you know they are, depending on if you see them very well or not.
So if I'm trying to hit that laptop, so if that laptop moved from like somewhere from the doorway to there, instead of going like that, it would be like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a really quick movement, and the more you do that really quick movement, the more you'll get used to that really
'cause
quick
my
movement.
thing is like if I try that at that laptop, it's like it's gonna.
It's a little
stop
bit
there.
off, yeah.
Yeah, or like.
But as you keep doing it, like that one was towards the middle, and it's gonna vary each time because nobody hits every shot.
Right.
But
In that
it
in that hallway
you'll get better at it.
where the elevator is, there's like a little
You'll hit a higher
and
percentage of your
how
shots.
much of a movement? So do you snap like that or like that? Is it just preference?
It's completely situational based on how much the enemy moved. So after I do a shot, I usually will try to reset my screen to, or like reset my mouse to center so that it's
Right.
comfortable again after like a shot.
What the fuck is
So I'll do my flick, reset to center, flick again, and I think that's a good habit to pick up with most shooting characters.
Right.
Hey, you know what?
So
So then it'd
it's
be like
not even necessarily you have to reset to somewhere on the screen. It's just you want to reset your mouse to somewhere comfortable.
right.
And the farther away a flick it.
Oh,
Oh,
God,
oh no, Doomfist.
I thought it was as Ash, so I hit
Yeah,
the gun.
I killed them both.
But yeah, I think that's a really good habit to build with basically any character is like after you do some sort of big movement, like with Winston, I don't know if you saw it, but I would have to do like really quick, like a flick upward to do my jump in the right direction, and then quickly reset my mouse to wherever I need it at the time or wherever is most comfortable if I don't need it at the time. So I'd be ready for whatever I need to do next. Ooh,
Oh.
that was a close one. Do some more flicks, or did you want to do something else? Whatever you feel.
I'm trying to think. May's probably another good one for flicks, right? Where you have
Yeah, she's very flicky. She's also very similar to a Hanzo in that the flicks are pretty different from a
Right. Oh my goodness.
from a Widow or an Ashe or a McCree, in that you might need to lead a little bit depending on the range.
Right.
I personally love Mei, although I think she's a little annoying right now in the current meta, but she's
Right.
just a fun character in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I liked what you did there, like towards the end. You were it looked kind of like you were trying to go, because you thought the Ashe was like probably going to move back towards her team, I think, a little
Right.
bit. So you like aimed a little bit in that direction. I think that's smart, and that's kind of like going in the right direction of what you should be doing.
I feel like a lot of it seems to come down to like, just like how like your muscle are used to it.
Yeah,
Memory,
a lot
muscle
of
memory.
a lot of aim is just. It's not like if you think harder, your aim is going to get better. It's like something that you just have to get used to and get better at.
I keep forgetting I have my primary fire. I've just been trying to get the flicks down.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I gotcha.
You can't. Yeah, that's pop up.
Do you
Maybe.
does the difference of mice make a difference? I've seen other than the quality.
Yeah, it can. There's a lot of different things that people do with different mice. So the CSGO team would know a ton about this kind of thing because apparently they swap all of their gear when they come in. But I know quite a bit about it because we play a first-person shooter as well, obviously.
Right.
Although it's not quite as aim-heavy for all of the players as CSGO would be. But so like this mouse, I like because it's a little bit smaller than I think a lot you'll see. It's pretty lightweight feeling. It has the 2 buttons on the side, which is all I need. Depending on what you're doing, like MOBA players will often have one of those mice that has like 9 buttons on the side of it. A lot of people like different amounts of weight that you can add or take out of your mouse.
And what do the weights do for the mouse?
It's kind of hard to describe. It's like, it's sort of a physics thing actually, in that the more weight on your mouse, so even if you're pushing down on it more,
Right.
or if you have more weight in there, then it's going to cause more friction with the mat, generally. Oh man, that could be large, or it could be on the ceiling. Who knows?
Oh no, it was short. It was like off the
Hey, you're contesting. Oh, huge.
Oh my god.
Uh-oh.
Hopefully my
Bob shredded you whenever you got stuck in the air.
Yeah.
That feels bad.
I've had matches where it's helped our team where Soldier ulted and Sigma took him up.
Yeah. That's kind of wild, not seeing that. One thing I did see with Sigma that was really funny, that I did actually, is that in overtime on a payload, you can use your ult to pull everyone up off of the payload, and then the game just ends before they get back to the ground, and it's really silly.
Characters like Doomfist, how would you?
I did push.
Because I feel like, do you track with the punch or do you flick, or is it more of a predicting a path?
Punch, I actually don't play a lot of Doomfist, but Punch seems like it would be sort of a
Yeah, close range. I had to try.
slight prediction similar to a projectile that you'd probably do a flick with. So you could kind of like aim ahead of them a little bit, or to where you think they're about to be. Another big thing with Doomfist is also trying to set up an angle where you can hit them against a wall or something too.
So would you like start keeping it on the target, or would you like, say I'm dealing with something here and then I just
Well, considering the charge up time, I'd probably keep it on the target because there's nothing else for you to be doing or looking at that period of time anyway.
Why does it look like a zombie in here?
I'm just trying to see if
Oh, I hear him.
Something that's really popular with Doomfist in like Masters and stuff is that they will left shift you up into the air and then like just get a couple shots on you. I think generally since it comes out so fast, you'll kind of be tracking with those shots.
Right.
So you'll be trying to keep it on them instead of flicking. Also because they're in a fairly they're in a fairly predictable arc of movement whenever you do that to them.
Do you suggest people move with their arm or just the wrist?
Definitely depends on the character and your preference and sensitivity. I personally like doing a little bit of both. So like when I'm playing Reinhardt for the team, for example,
Right.
if I'm trying to aim a fire strike, I might be aiming with my wrist to get it like around an awkward corner or something. But then whenever I need to quickly turn my shield to help someone right after, I'm then going to make just a quick
Like
movement over,
yeah.
basically, yeah.
I definitely learned a lot more than I did going into it. I knew that there were different types of like aiming, and like I always come in here and I see people have different setups and positioning, and it makes more sense now. Sort of like tailor fit it to your like what you're good at. Like
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool how much like variety you get with different players doing different things. And I'm glad I was able to help. I wasn't sure how much I would be able to help, but I guess the flexibility and being able to talk about all the different things, I think that was good. I think that was fun to talk about and play.
yeah, hopefully this will get me out of silver.